Okay. The next thing that I will discuss in today's session is how to create a custom dashboard. Okay, till now, as a developer, you have seen that you can see the analyzed reports, you can see the conversation flows, which will show you a report on the performance of the bot after it has been published. But these reports are very, reports which have too much of details. So, as business users of an enterprise, if they want to see the performance statistics of a bot, these analyzed reports are not good reports to share with them because they have details which may not make sense for the business users. So, as a business user, let's say somebody wants to see that how well is intent identification taking place, or date-wise, they want to see how many utterances are correctly matching to an intent and how many utterances are failing. Okay, so this kind of a report, you cannot, if you need to present a report like that, you cannot share this report with them, the metrics report, because it contains information which may not be required by the business users, and the format of this report also may not be presentable to the business users. So it is better that if we have some widget through which we can display this kind of information. Okay, and to do that, we have the custom dashboard. So click on custom dashboard. In a custom dashboard, you can create your own dashboard, and within that dashboard, you can enable multiple widgets, and within the widgets, you can display information as per your requirement. To build the widgets from the platform end, we expose various analytics data. So whatever is caught in the analytics report, all of those are available to the developers so they can build the dashboard metrics using those data. Okay, so we start off by clicking on create dashboard. Give a name to your dashboard. Let's say something like bot performance. Okay, and click on proceed. Now this dashboard will be a collection of widgets. Okay, and within the widgets we are going to display different data. Okay, so now I click on add widget over here and start building the widget. Now there are three data sets which are exposed from our platforms, and one is the analytics data set, which will give you access to all the analytics data which is available. That is intent found, intent not found, tasks successfully executed, task failure, then what was the channel, and all related details. Similarly, we have particular statistics for the messages which are exchanged between the bot and the user, and another data set which is the session related data set. If you want to see the details of each of these data sets and what are the data which is available under each of these data set, refer to our documentation. Under the documentation, what you get to see is the different data which you can use in order to create your widget. So, click on go in for custom dashboard over here. Okay, if you scroll down, you will see these are the different data sets which are exposed. So you can see the data sets and the fields, the analytics data set. These are the different fields which are exposed. You can use these fields in order to create your own widget. Okay. Similarly, you will see another data set, which is the messages data set, and within this data set, these are the fields which are exposed, and you have the sessions data set under which these are the fields which are exposed. Okay, so depending on your requirement, you can select the data set. Okay, so I'm going to create my first widget through which I'm going to show my ratio of intent success and intent failure. Okay, so date wise I want to do a widget like that. So what we do is we come to over here, select the data set. So I want to select the analytics data set. This date range is for the preview purpose. Okay, so you can select a date range over here. And then we come that within this widget, what do you want to actually display? Okay, so come to the select section, and I want date wise, I want the metric type. Okay, you can see what is there in the metric type. So come to custom data, you can see metric type will show you success task, success intent, failed task, and failed intents. Intents means if an utterance has matched to a particular task, it is taken as a success intent. If an NLP has failed to identify an intent against an utterance, it is taken as a failed intent. After a task is identified, if the task was completed by the user, then it is taken as a success task. But if somewhere in between, while the task execution was on, if the user has discarded that task, maybe due to your interruption setting also, the task got discarded, then it is taken as a failed task. So if you want to present this data, that is date wise, how many tasks were successfully completed, how many were failed tasks, how many intents were correctly identified, how many utterances failed to identify an intent. So that kind of a statistics, if we want to display in the widget, then the field to be selected is the metric type. Okay, so that is what I'm selecting over here. And of course, within the widget, we do not display a detail, but we display a aggregate output. Okay, so I want to count how many of each type of task was handled. Okay, so I go in for count metric type. Okay, now once we have the select command, very similar to SQL command. So if you are familiar with SQL command, you will see this is very similar. So we have the select first, then we have the filter. So out of the entire data set, if you want to filter on some values, you can set up your filter condition over here. I leave it blank. Then group by, obviously group by, because you are using a cumulative this thing function over here, aggregate function over here. So that is why we need to group the details on the basis of some data. So I want to group on date, and within each date I want to group on the metric type. Okay, and if you want to sort your details, let's keep that blank and click on run to execute this particular command and see what is fetched from my analytics report. So you can see date wise, you can see how many success tasks, how many failed intents, how many success intents are coming up in this particular report. If you want to group, if you want to sort this data, okay, so let's say on the date I want to sort it, you can specify the order. DESC means descending order, ASC is ascending order. Okay, so you can see the latest coming up first, and gradually if you look into this, you will see it going in the descending order. If you want to filter by, so you want just to see the failed intent and the success intents. You don't want to see the success task, number of success task and failed task. Okay, so you can filter on the basis of that also. Okay, so you can say uh, metric type equal to, and copy this particular value from here. Okay, and let's run this and see whether it is displaying the data properly or not. One second. Oh, sorry, my operator is wrong. It should not be and means both the conditions satisfied together. Okay, So it's an or operator. Okay, so either the metric type is equal to success intent or the metric type is equal to failed intent. So this time it is not showing you the data for the success task and the failed task. So if you don't put a filter, all of it will be picked up. If you put a filter, it will filter it on the basis of the condition that you have given. Now, once you have your data set ready, so this is my data to be displayed in the widget. Once you have that ready, now come here on the right hand side and configure your widget. So when you're configuring a widget, you need to say what template you want to apply. So there are several templates which are available here. You can see a table chart, you can see a pivot chart, you can see bar, you can see horizontal bar, you can see line chart, you can see pie chart, and so on. So I'm going to use the, let's say, the line chart over here. So I select that, give a name to your widget. Something like this. And then in dimension, in the x-axis, let's say I want the date to come up. In the y, from the y-axis, I want the count of each of this metric types to come up. And overlays, when you hover your mouse over each of those bars, it should show you what it actually represents. So once you've configured this, you click on preview. So you can see the preview coming up over here. So if you hover this, you can see on 29 June, there were 7 success intents. On 26th, there were 3 failed intents. And on 25th, 16 success intents. And you can see 4 failed intents. Okay, so this is what you get to see over here. Click on add to dashboard to add this widget to your dashboard. Okay, if you want, you can actually change the date range from the dashboard view as well. Okay, but remember, custom dashboard will pick up details from your conversation, from the real conversation that is happening between the user and the bot as well. So after sessions, after the users are having sessions, you as a developer, if you open the custom dashboard widgets, it will show you the latest data from the conversations that is happening between the end users and the bot. Okay, any questions on this? Let's add one more widget over here. Let's say I go in for something from the messages. Okay, so let me just quickly check out what is available in messages. So please refer to this documentation because it's not possible for you to remember all these fields. It is good to go through the documentation, see what fields are available in order to, create the custom dashboards and use those data sets. Okay, so let's say I'm going to build a widget now. Date wise, how many incoming messages and how many outgoing messages. Okay, so that is your message type field I want to display. So we come back to the bot builder. Okay, so data set is messages. In select, put in your select command. So date wise, I want to see how many incoming messages, okay, and how many outgoing messages. So I want a count of the message type. And I want to group this data on date message type. Click on run to see whether it is working or not. So you can see you're getting date wise, you're getting user messages and how many responses went from the bot end. So once you have your data set ready, now you come here and create a widget. So obviously, since this will be user and bot messages, you can either use a vertical bar or a bar chart or a line graph as per your requirement. Let me go in for a line chart over here. Uh, So in the x-axis dimension, I go in for the date. In the y-axis, the number of messages each date, and the overlay will be the message type. So let's click on preview. So you can see in the preview, you are getting to see, if you hover your mouse, you can see This represents the bot messages. So on this date, 35 bot messages and 33 user messages. Okay, so you can scroll like this and you can see what was the representation, and click on add to dashboard to add the widget to your dashboard. So this way you can build multiple you can build a custom dashboard, add multiple widgets to your custom dashboard to represent any data from the analytics of the bot. And this is particularly for business users, because for them seeing details, text-based details, is not very convenient. So you can create charts like this with widgets, add that to your dashboard and present the dashboard to the business users. You can refer to our documentation over here to see what are the different functions that are available, aggregate functions that are available. So you can see from here, the max, min, sum, count, average, all of these are available. Similarly, you can find out all the operators that you can use in the filter by field. Okay, so this way you can configure, you can create your custom widgets and add it to your custom dashboard. You can also add your own data that we will see tomorrow when we discuss about meta tags. So within your conversation flows, if you want to present date wise how many savings account were opened and how many checking account were open, so that kind of a statistics you can also present. So you can add a meta tag to your dialog flow, and from that particular meta tag, using that meta tag, you can generate a custom widget. Okay, so that we'll be doing tomorrow. Any questions on this?
Jayanti, one question
Yeah.
on this. So,
Yeah.
can we create a metric with across data types? There were three data types, right? Can we take one access from one data type and the other from
No,
other?
that you cannot do it, because when you are defining a widget, it will allow you to
Mhm.
select any one of those data types. Okay, so you cannot create a widget, but yeah, same dashboard you can have different widgets representing using different data sets. But same widget using different data set, that is not possible. It will allow you to select any one of the data sets only. Okay.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, but you can have, like I have used two widgets. One is from the analytics, and one is from the message. Similarly, if you want to represent something from the sessions, you can add another widget through which you can do it. But same widget, multiple data set is not allowed. Any other questions? Okay.
Is
So
there any way that
then,
we can get this, let's say, number of transaction happen, that kind of more transactional related
yeah.
methods?
Yeah, so that is what I said, like, transaction related. So I have something called open account. Okay, so I want to track, present something like in a day, how many users requested for savings account, how many users requested for checking account. So we have to add a meta tag. Okay, so to my dialog flow, I'm going to define a tag that is a developer defined tag. We are going to use a meta tag, and using that meta tag we are going to represent the data of that meta tag within the widget. So we'll do that tomorrow when we are discussing those context variables and all. I'll do cover that part tomorrow, but we can use that. Okay, we can define something like that.
Jayanti, one more question.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff, I mean, recorded on the session, but do you persist like essential data, or like because of PII regulations and all, so you can persist some data, but some cannot. So just to get a idea, how do you do it when you absolute necessary to persist some transactional data? How it happens?
See, whatever conversation takes place on our platform, okay, so we have our databases where we store all these conversations for generating the analytics report or the conversation history and all. Okay, the duration of that depends on what kind of this thing you have with core, if it is your in-house, if it is an on-prem deployment, so what kind of deployment? By default on our clouds, this thing, we maintain the data for 3 months. Okay, so all conversations are stored in our databases for 3 months, and those data is used for generating the conversation history and all. Okay, along with the PII redaction. But again, if there are some, if you're on-prem, while you can control this from the admin console. So if you are, on a particular deployment of the platform, if all your conversations or bots that you are developing are very sensitive bots, you do not want to store the conversation history and all. You do not want this analytics report, because that might give the developers access to some data which is not actually supposed to be exposed. Okay, so then we can control this persistence of data from the admin console. So we can say that do not persist any conversation data, but that affects your generation of the analytics report. So those are very special use cases. But by default, we have our databases where we hold all conversation that is taking place between bots and the users, by default by 3 months, and that can be changed as per the requirement of the enterprise. Okay. Did that
One
answer?
last question.
Yeah, sure.
I saw in the some of the basic training, you had, you got to delete some of the context in order to, go back and refresh the new, or you go back to the
Yeah.
same session, right? So in
Mm-hmm.
that way, you are clearing some of the sessions. So in that situation, if you were to
See,
store that, is it already saved, or before you clear the context, you have to save it? Or how do you
see, we
enforce the same?
have, yeah. So so in those sessions, what you saw was, that was, like let's say a particular dialogue flow is going on. Okay, and somewhere before making an API call, you verify the details with the user. Okay, you ask that, do you want to proceed with this account ID? The user says a no. Okay, maybe he made a mistake. You ask the bot asks the user, do you want to give a new account ID? Now, if the user says an yes, you are connecting him back to that particular entity node through which you are going to accept the account ID. Now, by default on our platform, what happens is, as long as a dialog task is in execution, okay, the account ID, the entity values will be stored in the context. That means it will be available in that context. So later on in the same dialog flow, if you refer to that entity, it does not lose the value that the user has given. So that is available as long as that dialog task is in execution. The moment you come out of a dialog task, that is the dialog task execution has come to an end, these entity values and everything will be automatically refreshed. That means the instance of those entities are lost. So next time when the user is asking for the same task, these instances of the entities will be created once again, and the bot will ask for those values once again. Okay, so if you want to store some value before it is lost, once a dialog task comes to an end, you need to store it in the context, and we have different contexts which are available, like the enterprise context. You have the bot context, okay, the user context, the user session context, and the bot user session context. So these are different contexts which are available. Enterprise context means whatever is stored in the enterprise context, those information is available to all the bots on that particular deployment of the bots platform for that enterprise. Okay, so those are global data accessible to all bots. Some global policies which all the bots you are developing on your platform, they should have access to those details. You can store those details in the enterprise context. Bot context means those details are available to to the bots which are designed. Okay, so to a particular bot, if you want to add some data, that is available in the bot context. So irrespective of who is the user, um, these details are available for that particular bot. So that is your bot context. User session context. So for a particular session of the user, if there are some data which should be shared across all the tasks, you can store that data in the user session context. Bot user session context. Okay, so sorry, the last one was for that particular user, irrespective of the bot he is using, you can store a particular detail, maybe the location of the user or the some address of the user. So irrespective of the bot that user uses, these details are permanent, so you can store it in the user session context. Or you have the bot user session context, which means the session the user is having with a particular bot. Okay, so in that session, if you want to share some store some details, you can store it in that context. So depending on where you store it, you can access that detail. That detail is persisted. Before a particular entity's value is refreshed at the end of a particular task, if that value is very important and you want to store that value as long as, let's say, the user doesn't end the session, okay, you can store it in the respective context. But what we were doing there is we wanted to force the user to give a new account ID. By default, the platform will not allow that because the dialog task was in execution, and the instance of the entity is still there. So as long as the entity is populated with a value, the platform will not allow the user to enter a new value. So through a JavaScript, a single line of JavaScript, we remove the current instance of that particular entity. So once the instance is removed, if the conversation reaches that entity, a new instance of that entity will be created. And once again, the bot will prompt for the value of that entity. This was because you are in that dialog task only, and once again you are prompting the user to type in a value of an existing entity for which the user has already given some values. Okay, so that is how you can do it. But in case you want to persist some data, you can always do that from our context variables. We have different contexts, like I was talking about. Refer to our documentation on that. The session context and variables. Okay, so you can refer to our documentation where you get the details. And you can go through each of these contexts. Okay, so you can see this several contexts: the enterprise context, the bot context, the user context, the user session context, the bot user session context. Okay, so you can store some information in this way: the name of the context dot put, followed by a name of a variable, the value to be stored, and the minutes to persist that data, how long you want that data to be stored. By default, whatever is stored in the enterprise context and the bot context, they remain as it is. They are permanent in nature. But whatever is stored in the user session and the bot user session context, that gets refreshed automatically after 30 minutes. So if you want to persist that data for a longer time, you need to specify your duration in minutes over here. And if you want to fetch some information from these contexts, the name of the context dot get, followed by the name of the variable whose data you want to fetch. So this way you can store information which you want to persist after a dialog task goes out of context. That means if the user has completed execution of that dialog task, so before the entities lose the value, if those entity values are very important and you want them to be available across other tasks, you can store those values within the respective context. Okay.
One question from the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
Can we trigger an alert based on the data? Let's say failed intent ratio goes beyond a certain threshold. Can we trigger an alert?
You cannot trigger a dialog task or an alert task from your custom dashboard. Here you can only represent some data which is trapped by our analytics. Okay, so whatever analytics data that you have, So that is your performance metrics of the bot. So whatever is available in that analytics data set means in general. I'm not talking about the that is whatever is available in the analyze metrics particularly. This data can be represented using the custom dashboard. Okay, but you cannot trigger the execution of a task from the custom dashboard. Your alert task is also a particular task, right? Like a dialog task, alert task is also another task. You cannot trigger the execution of the alert task over here. You can represent some data. If the alert task information is available in your analytics report and all, you can use that data and represent it within your custom dashboard. Okay, but you cannot trigger the task from your custom dashboard. That is not possible.
And
Okay.
my understanding is this data, metrics data is persisted for 24 hours only, right? Is there a way to
No, no,
export
no,
this?
no. 1 second. It is which data you are representing. You want this custom dashboard, this widgets to display the data of the last 24 hours, okay? Or you want to this widget to display the data of the last 7 days, or you can click on custom and select the date range for which you want to display the data. So it will pick up the data as per that from the analytics reports, from the analyze metrics, and represent that within your custom dashboard. Okay, so
Is there any way to export this data?
yes, you have the export dashboard option over here. Okay, so you can export your entire dashboard from here. So when you click on export over here, okay, so you get a JSON file coming up, and if you can open that JSON file and you can see this kind of a report will come up. We do not have the we have an option to so, and then what you can do is you can import over this thing. So that is how the data will be represented. Okay, so when you are exporting it, 1 second, wait, it might export. Okay, so when you are exporting it, you can export that data in a JSON format. Okay, that is possible, but remember this, and we can use API calls also to do this. Okay, to export the custom dashboard data, we can also use API calls. Okay, that I'll be showing you in the next section. But this 24 hours, 7 days, or the custom data range, date range, it means for which range it will pick up details from the analytics reports, from the analyze metrics, and represent that within your custom dashboard. Okay, it does not have anything with persistence of data. Okay, it depends on what is the date range, and as per that, data will be represented within your custom dashboard. You can export your custom dashboard from here. Okay, so you have export widget also. So these are actually JSON means the configuration, because these are typically used, for exporting. You can see the count is displayed over here. Okay, so each of it will show you what was the data that was represented. Okay, so typically used by the developers to display some information to the business users, okay, using the platform. So that is why we have the custom dashboard over here. Any other question on this?
Yeah, I asked the question more from the operation standpoint. For
Yeah.
example, I mean, if message flow gets exceeded on a certain threshold, then we have to look at the extending the underlying compute and network resources. So something like that. That's why I was interested on
No,
the.
these are details that are trapped from the bot conversation actually. Okay, whatever you are representing in the custom dashboard, they are a part of the bot conversation that users are having with the bot. So the analyze metrics that are trapped by the bot. So that is what we present in the custom dashboard. Not some network related details and all, which is outside the platform. So
No,
okay.
that's not. I mean, let's say the message flow, if it
Mm-hmm.
exceeds a certain threshold, that means we are getting more traffic than usual. Then we need to look at the underlying compute network. I just gave an example. If the intent failure ratio is above a certain threshold, And again, we have to revisit the intent identification, right? ML and NLP part. So
Yeah.
something, yeah, some
So
alerts, yeah.
no, that is not a part of the dashboard. If you want something like that, you have to configure an alert task for that. Okay. Custom dashboard is a static representation of your data. Okay, so it is not that a custom dashboard report gets a value of certain value and on which it will trigger an alert task. It cannot do something like that. Okay, so it is just for data representation that we use the custom dashboard. Okay, you want to present some data, you want to create a widget to present some data. That is the only purpose. But what you are saying over here is today, if the failure scenario, okay, it goes above, let's say 500 failure scenarios in a day, on which you want to trigger an alert to the developer or whoever that your task is failing, okay, or there is a huge immense failure in task, that you cannot do it from the custom dashboard. That automation is not possible from the custom dashboard. From the custom dashboard, what the developer can see is the number of failures only, okay, depending on the date range. And then he needs to go and see the details. Once again, remember, this will not show you any details other than the count. Okay, so what is the exact utterance that matched, or what is the failure? If you are getting to see failures over here, then what is your failure? What utterance failed? That you cannot see it from the custom dashboard. That kind of a details, if you want to see, you have to come back to metrics, and from metrics you have to go into the details. Okay, so this is where you will get to see the details of which utterance failed, to identify an intent correctly, and depending on that you can trigger your NLP training. But this detail will not be displayed in the custom dashboard. That you cannot do. Custom dashboard is for count, so that is why you can see those cumulative functions are used over there, not to display details like the utterances and all those things. That cannot be represented there. Okay.